that you found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows. It's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are Judy here. We have little technical difficulties. We are Dr. Judy WTF, and I am your host as usual, Walt Lusk. Thanks for joining us. We have a very titillating show this evening with you, and thanks for checking. Indeed, very titillating. And later on, we will be doing our normal Shrink That Tune. This one's going to be from Janet Jackson, which will be self-explanatory when we get to it. Our topic today, and we're going to need lots of call-ins, folks, is fetishes. And the question is, what is your fetish? Because I know, and Dr. Judy knows, you've got them. So, and our call-in number, yes, they're very common. Our call-in number is, get it off the top. People complaining I say it too fast. 323-284-7826. That's 323-284-7826. Now, what started us all on this journey of fetishism is an article that came out a couple days ago in the Los Angeles Times. I read it, and it was a 19-year-old guy who was working at a roller rink in Northridge, and he could not keep away from the little skaters. He would put them in, he'd call them and kind of challenge them to come into the men's room, and then behind the men's room was a little maintenance room. He would sit them on a washing machine and take off their skates, and then he would film them and put them all over his face and hands and have a grand old time with his feet. Just take off the skates so it was bare feet. So he had a huge foot fetish. And in a year's time, he did over 200 boys that they found thus far. So this guy was in toe heaven.
No, he didn't do over 200 boys. He did their skates.
Well, he did it without their skates on. He took the skates off because he wanted their feet.
Oh, it was the feet, but it wasn't anything about their genitalia. Right?
No,
it was
actually,
just all about their feet.
It was just all about their feet.
So this was an example of foot fetish.
It was a huge foot fetish. Okay. I mean, he was in foot fetish heaven because he got all boys to take their skates off and he'd do his business. What busted him was interesting was Grandma was wondering where her grandson was because he was in the restroom a little bit too long, like 20 minutes. And he came out with his bare feet, and she's going, okay, you know, he had your skates on. I probably had to put them on for you. Where are they going? So, and foot fetishes are real common.
So he got busted by Grandma, huh?
That Grandma basically was the one that started it, and then they started doing some research, and they busted him 2 months ago. So and they looked at his phone and his computer and found more goodies.
So today we're going to talk about cause, our favorite subject.
Okay.
And again, continuing the Hole in the Soul series, because all of the symptoms that we experience as a human race come from a disconnect. And the disconnect has to do with the primary disconnect, which is the mother-infant disconnect from birth on. And so when there is a disconnection and there's a reaction to the disconnection and then an encoding in the disconnection, and if any of you have been listening to previous shows, then you know that I created a mind map for studying how problems are created, how they're dismantled, and how they're paradigm shifted into solution.
And if you want to check out the mind map, you can actually go to our website, drjudywtf.com. It's there.
Yeah, so now what we're going to do is basically take a look at the symptoms of fetishes, and we're going to get deeper into the matter.
I didn't know that the fact that I had a fetish that I had a symptom. I thought it was just a fetish.
Well, you know, a lot of them are harmless. Okay,
and
some people go to jail for their fetishes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll get into some examples of that also.
And we have a very unique list of some fetishes that golly, it was quite a revelation
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
But, a little background, fetish came out from a Portuguese word in the 1800s, even though...
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. You didn't know that. See,
No, that's...
Right.
That's why I love your
There you
research,
go.
Walt.
The term fetishism was coined in the late 1800s. It originates from a Portuguese word fetico, F-E-I-T-I-C-O, which means obsessive fascination.
Okay.
And away it went. Okay. This is a degree of fetiholic arousal most normal individuals found in body features attractive. And what's interesting, I didn't know either, is more men have fetishes than women. So I guess we really are more, golly, I want to say the word visual, but it's more our thing than girls' things.
So for those of you
Here,
who...
and the little follow-up on that, it says, the fact that men are far more likely to develop fetishes than women was always a clue that there was some underlying biological predisposition in the male brain toward the developing of fetishes. In contrast, females' brains are far more likely than male brains to develop object sexual, a romantic or emotional attachment to an object, like fences or Ferris wheels, or one woman wanted to marry the Eiffel Tower.
Really?
Yes.
Was she successful?
I don't know. I don't know if they ever accepted her proposal.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if the Eiffel rejected or accepted her. I just yeah, we'll get back to you on that one. We'll do some more research on that one. But essentially, we talk a lot about human disconnect, and one of the symptoms of human disconnect is that we've gone through objects as opposed to people. And so fetishes, in my mind, is just a prime example of connecting to objects because, well, let's face it, an object will never break your heart.
That's true.
And will never break up with you, right?
It'll never let you down. Is that like the song "Imaginary Lover"?
I like
from
that
the
song.
80s.
Love that song.
Yeah, it's a fun song.
Yeah, well, we can use that.
Never let you down.
As a shrink that tune one of these days.
We'll have to do that.
Tonight we have something
different
in store for you. So going back to the childhood wound, what do we need for healthy human psyche? Okay, so here's
connection.
Yes. So here's the lowdown. We need touch. We need eye contact. We need consistency. We need unconditional love in the form of touch, eye contact, consistency, attunement, meaning that when we're little, we need our mothers to attune to our needs versus us attuning to their needs, which then forms the basis of narcissism, which is a topic that we've covered.
We covered narcissism very well in a previous show, so check out our podcast.
And last time we talked about the song by the Arctic Monkeys, one of my favorite tunes, called Do I Want to Know? And one of the sentences in the song is, do the feelings flow both ways? And so when...
as my personal line is it a two-way freeway?
Is it a two-way freeway? Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so in nature, when we come into the world, it's supposed to flow from mother to infant, and that is the order of things. And so when mother is narcissistic and she needs the baby to be an object for her personal needs, and she's using the baby to satisfy her emotional needs, then the feelings are flowing from baby to mother, and we've got a problem there because basically the baby's not getting the proper, I call them emotional supplies or narcissistic supplies that then will build the healthy psyche. So we haven't changed much. We still need all of those human elements, the touch, the eye contact, the consistency, the unconditional love, the attunement. It feels good. When we connect with somebody, it's heaven is what it is.
There's one comment that I read on billboards regarding fetishism, they said it was heaven for them.
Right, yeah. Because when there's that meeting of the mind, body, soul, then you're basically accessing a very high level of frequency that I term connection to source energy, however you want to define that. Okay. And so one of the things about fetishes, and then we're going to get, if we have time, into sadomasochism, and if we don't have time, that just means we're trying to punish you a little bit, okay? You have to come back next time.
Titillate you and punish you.
Yeah, pretty much,
You might have to come back for more.
That's right. Okay, so this is all about human sexuality, and this is about human sexuality kind of going sideways, some of which is fun.
Sideways.
Okay.
Yes. Well, actually, another cause for the show is, of course, the infamous book that I my admitted reading all 3 of the trilogies was
God, I have to read those books. Tell me about them.
50 Shades of Grey. Ultimately, my take on it quickly is it was more fish out of water. You know, he was a billionaire, very controlling, thought he could only do non-vanilla sex.
Okay.
And she was very innocent, and he had the original potential of being a submissive, and it turned out she wasn't. He thought she was going to be.
Oh, that she was going to be his submissive.
Submissive,
okay.
correct.
Got it.
And she turned out to be a little more strong-willed than he expected, so he got more than she bargained for, and she met this billionaire who, you know, is very set in his ways and very controlling, and so she was out of water with him, and he was out of water with her, and the whole journey. It was written well, I believe. And it was more than just about bondage. And of course, they're trying to make it into a movie, so we shall see.
Interesting.
But 50 Shades of Grey was a fun read.
And it's recalling some subjects that we covered during some of the other episodes, which is relationships are a place where we get to heal, and they are a place where we get to morph and bump up to higher levels. And
there was a lot of healing more from his perspective than hers as a result of the relationship. Yeah.
So going back to the notion of human disconnect and the society that we currently find ourselves in,
yes.
2014, what are we doing? We're doing cell phones, we're doing computers, we're doing a lot of...
We're doing texting. We're trying to spend as much time as we can connecting with our imaginary lovers and friends on Facebook.
Right. And so it makes sense that people want to bond with maybe not people.
Well,
maybe
it's safe.
People,
yeah.
Right? It's really, really, really safe. And so this goes back a long
and
way.
There's bond, and then, of course, there's bondage.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Right.
And if you want to talk to us about bonding or bondage, and as we say, do not explode or implode, but unload, get on the couch with Dr. Judy. And our phone number is 323-284-7826.
And really, really love the calls.
We love to hear.
Lots of fun.
Love
very
it.
challenging.
And we will give you a free copy of her brand new fiction book entitled Lucid Darkness,
which is available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon and Kindle as well.
And Kindle. And lo and behold, it's a story about a woman who created a mind map to heal human disconnect. Coincidence? I think not.
What a coinky dink.
Isn't it? Okay. So I just want to read a little bit about a short history of masochism. The Marquis de Sade might have given his name to sadomasochism, but responsibility for the term might be more accurately handed to Freud. Freud, our show is called.
WTF? What the Freud?
So, of course, I wanted to bring Freud into the conversation. The terms sadism and masochism were only coined during the rise of psychoanalysis in the 1880s, but sexual historians agree that the behaviors have existed for far longer. So, no, Freud did not invent sadomasochism.
No, he did not.
He did not.
Although he talked about it and made it more of a diagnosis in 1905.
Okay, so activity that could be classified as sadomasochistic appears often in medieval stories and shows that 15% of the American adult population have engaged in S&M at some point. So there's some popularity here, and again, you know, there's that edge where people like to not be completely vanilla, and it just because people enjoy sadism, masochism, fetishes, it doesn't mean that they're sick. I think that there's a really, really fine line between something that, like you brought it up the other day, David Carradine, right?
David Carradine was found in Thailand. His fetish was, at the point of ejaculation, he liked to be somewhat strangled. And, of course, there's a fine line between ecstasy and the complete non-ecstasy. Yeah, he was found tied to I believe it was in a closet, and wearing some unique clothing. In other words, he probably wasn't alone when it happened, but whoever it was obviously took off. So, yeah, and that was why his wife divorced him, was because this fetish was something that she couldn't control, and it scared the heck out of her, and she didn't want to be around this guy because it ultimately did him in. Yeah. What's interesting is you talk about that more than one has experienced it with S&M, and the more popular among educated middle and upper middle class men and women. So it's if you've got if you're that upper echelon of a bit, then might be something you might be more interested in or have done.
And does that mean that if people want to engage in those activities, they should get rich quick so that they could be in that echelon?
No, maybe they should find somebody with a higher net worth than them. I mean, this is an article, The Pleasure and the Pain of Why Some People Need S&M. The intro is very funny. Bind my ankles with your white cotton rope so I cannot walk. Bind my wrists so I cannot push you away. Place me on the bed and wrap your rope tighter around my skin so it grips my flesh. Now I know that struggle is useless, and I must lie here and submit to your mouth and tongue and teeth and hands and words and whims. I exist only as your object, exposed.
Who wrote that? Did you write that? Well,
no, I'm afraid I didn't write that.
Oh. I was afraid too.
This one person involves a highly unbalanced power relationship established through role-playing, bondage, and or the infliction of pain. Right, the knowledge that one person has complete control over the other. Men, I think, like bondage a lot is because men are decision makers, and we're making decisions all darn day long. And if we don't have to, and it's fun, why not?
And I also understand that a lot of men are, like you said, they're so tired of making decisions. Some men like to be the submissive because they just, in one little area of their life, they just want to let go and let somebody else take charge. It's very, very pleasurable for them just to kick it back and let the woman take the lead here.
Right. And even though we know the most important sexual organ in the body is the space between what? Your ears.
Right there. Then the brain. The brain.
And what's interesting is it turns out that men are, so in that instance, and I read it somewhere and I can't find it, more men are submissives than women. Women are more dominatrix-esque
and that
than
makes
men.
sense,
and I thought that was very interesting.
In our world, men are just really tired of leading, and so because we have the yin and yang of us, right? So sometimes if the men are too yang, they want to do the yin in the bedroom, and some of the yang women also feel that they want to be submissive in the bedroom because they're just tired of being in control all day. So this goes both ways. But I like to get back to cause because that's my favorite topic. And if again we go back to the mind map and the cause of all symptoms, whether they be fun or not so fun, or lead to death or lead to pleasure, or be something that you just kind of enhance your life with or let your life be ruled by, it's all on a continuum, and there are no right ways to live life.
There's not.
However, there are laws, and of course I've had patients in my practice that have had symptoms. One of the people that I treated is a gentleman who was into frotteurism, which is a French word for rubbing up against.
Better you speak French than me because I can't speep French.
Well, I did it right. I lived in Montreal, Canada. So
no
still
doubt.
in me, the froid, still there, okay? So this gentleman was really scared of being arrested because his way of getting intimacy was by rubbing up against, because in his causal area, his childhood, he had issues with his family and intimacy, and so there wasn't a lot of it. And so his idea of the highest and the best form of intimacy that he can muster up, because he was scared of really opening up his heart and being close and being intimate, he thought, next best thing, I'll just rub up against people and get my little, jollies that way.
So would he prefer elevators or malls or?
Well, crowded places.
I mean, some places are more crowded than others.
Crowded places. And at one point, he rubbed up against a woman. It was pretty obvious because he fondled her. And,
oops.
And the cops were all over him.
Oops.
And he got out of it. But, of course, he had the fear in his heart that maybe, next time he wouldn't be that lucky. And
well, you know what? Something might have happened, right?
Right. So in these cases, we've got our personal preferences, and then we've got other people's boundaries, right? And so we get to do pretty much whatever we want in our own private world. But once it rubs up, literally,
the wrong way,
the boundaries of somebody else, well, that changes the whole landscape of it. So again, this is a case where he wanted intimacy, and he was in treatment because he actually wanted a relationship. He just didn't know how to do
right.
this.
He didn't have the right tools, and hadn't gotten the manual.
Correct. So when I look at cause, what I'm studying is the area of our psyche that's been wounded. Because when we're wounded and we don't want to bond to our object of love, which is our mother initially, right? Remember, we talk about the internal world is the womb, and the mother, and the external
is your father.
Right.
So if you have a goofy internal world, that's a reflection of the relationship you did or didn't have with your mother, and if you have a goofy outer world, then that's a relationship you did or didn't have with your father. And if you've got a goofy one with both, it's the double dungeon.
The double dungeon,
yes.
Yet again, that double dungeon, is a great way of describing sadomasochism, isn't it? Because you're in this dark, unknown space, and things are happening, and things are very, very dark, but yet they're heightened because now they're associated with sexuality. So I know we're jumping back and forth between fetishes and sadomasochism, and I thought about this and really wanted to simplify the definition. Fetishes are when we bond with a thing. Okay,
like thing or an object.
An object.
Right.
Okay, or we
like, for example, Jack
to...
Black loves clogs and bare feet.
Okay, so that's that thing. Okay, or a fetish for panties, or fetish for pigtails, something like that.
There's even fetishes for, I know why there's large stuffed animals at carnivals.
Right.
Because there's even a fetish for large stuffed animals.
Right. And then did you know that there's a group of people, and if you guys Google if you go to my website, drjudyrosenberg.com, or Dr. Judy WTF will also take you there.
Yes, drjudywtf.com.
There's a summary of me. There's a little video of me on Animal Planet, and in that particular episode, they talk about weird, true, and freaky things. And one of the weird, true, and freaky things is that people like to dress up as humanimals, or stuffed animals. Human animals.
Human animals.
Humanimals. They like to get dressed up in these really funky outfits that may be a wolf or a coyote or a bear or something like that, and they become identified with this object, and this object gives them a lot of safety. And they also have clubs where they become members of these clubs. Now, so that's an object, but when you take an object and you sexualize it, okay, so when you take the shoe and it becomes something of a sexual association, and now we're back to B.F. Skinner, father of behavioral psychology, and we're back to classical conditioning. So, wow, if you're having your first big O, your first big orgasm, and you're, 12, 13, 14 or something like that, and you happen to be at a place where there is, really, really interesting shoes, let's say, because I know shoes are a big fetish, and you're wearing these really crazy looking shoes, and you're having a big O, and you look down at your feet, and there's an association. That's a classical pairing.
So it's got the reward of it.
Yeah, it's got a pairing of it. So now when that object becomes associated with this heightened state of pleasure, then we've got the basis for the fetish, because we've got the pleasure, we've got the object, we've got the association. Okay? Now, in sadomasochism, we've got a sadist, we've got a masochist. So here we've got control submissive actions between people and not objects. Although objects may be used, and panties may be involved, and high heels may be involved, and ropes and chains and whips and handcuffs and all that stuff may be involved, the real concentration is on the person, not on the object.
I see. Okay.
Okay, and
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
when we get
Go
to
ahead.
objects, there, Ask Men, the magazine, asked men, hey, what are your favorite fetishes? Because I mean, if men are the ones that have fetishes, what better place to do? And we've got the top 10.
So I'm asking you, Walt, you're a man.
The
Go
top
ahead.
top 10.
Yeah.
Number 10 from the least to the most. First is stomachs.
That's the least?
Well, that's the 10th.
Oh, like the lowest.
Yeah,
on
lowest
the
of the one. Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
who doesn't
got
like a
it.
taut tummy?
Stomachs.
Although some
Okay.
like a little pot belly, but
Okay.
taut tummies.
Okay.
The next is body piercing. You know, belly button,
I thought
tongue,
that was
nipples,
gonna be
eyebrows.
higher up there, but go ahead.
Well, the
Okay.
younger crowd, basically, from 18 to 35, is body piercing. Next, from Ask Men, what fetishes they like is leather, rubber, vinyl, and latex. Right? They love the material, perhaps. They like the feel of it. Next is domination and submission. Right? Most women dominate, most guys submit. Here's where I found this. Love to order their men around in bed like slaves and spank them, smack them, and even penetrate them.
You mean like the strap-ons?
Uh-huh.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
6 is feet and hands, right? I mean, Elvis Presley had a huge feet fetish. In fact, women would line up to have a good time with him, and his handlers knew, forget the looks, the first place they looked was their feet.
Really?
Yes, they did. They take your shoes off, or you're wearing sandals, and they kind of got a feel, pardon the pun, of what he liked, and that was what he got. It was the feet were the first thing they looked at over anything else.
Interesting.
Next is fingernails and lipstick, right? 80s red lipstick and long red lacquered fingernails, right?
So is that why the red is so popular? At the
Kissing
beauty
women is great, and
salons?
I know some guys do like a little lipstick on their dipstick. Braids, ponytails,
Walt, I
and
love
pigtails.
your choice of words. Go ahead.
Braids, ponytails, and who doesn't like hair, right? So, and if women have a long braided hair, it can kind of like be a whip. So they claim here.
Okay.
Third of what fetishes men like, what that was odd, was water.
What?
They like in the
Water?
shower.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe in the jacuzzi.
Okay. Does that include golden showers?
That's
though?
the next one.
Oh,
Yeah, don't get ahead of me.
sorry.
Okay? That
Sorry.
ultimately deals with submission, enough said,
Okay.
and the voyeurism and exhibitionism.
Okay.
Only a minute amount of women admitted they're voyeuristic. So I guess guys are more voyeuristic than not. Because we're visual, right? So that's Ask Men, the top
Thank
10.
you. That was really interesting, and just I remember one of the first patients that I dealt with as an intern back in the day was a man who was referred to therapy because he was a voyeur, and it got bad. It got to the point where he started sneaking into bathrooms and looking under the stalls and watching women, and
Oh, my.
the therapy was going really well, and then one day he
He
said to
got
me,
busted.
"Oh no, this was really we had a great. Nobody wanted to see this guy because he was kind of
Creepy.
okay." And so I took him on, and the very first thing he said to me was, "Wow, you've really got long legs." And I said to him, I had to do something because I knew that this conversation wasn't going to.
It was going downhill fast.
Had to take control of the situation. So I said, "Well, thank you, but we're not here for my legs. So what's going on?" And he focused, and we worked really well together. He was really a pleasure to work with. And one day he comes in, he says, "Well, I've been kind of driving around the schoolyard." I'm going, WTF, you've been doing
Goodness,
what?
goodness.
I've been driving around the schoolyard. Yeah, what have you been doing around the school? Well, I'm kind of looking at, kids. And I turned to him, and I knew it was one of those moments where if I didn't put my foot down, then I wasn't going to be a very good therapist and asset to him. And I looked at him squarely in the eyes and I said, "Do you know that I'm a mandated child abuse reporter? Do you want to do the rest of these sessions in jail? Because that's where this conversation could be heading." And he stopped and he looked at me. I think he gulped, and we followed up on this. We took it very, very seriously. He was really motivated because he was scared of cops. He was scared of the law. And the next time he came into session, he came in with this great big sandwich. And I looked at it and I thought, defense mechanism, he was scared of me now. So decided to bring his sandwich
Big
in.
sub sandwich,
Right,
huh?
big sub sandwich,
Oh,
so
there
that
you go.
he can
And you
hide
didn't even share it
behind
with
the
you, huh?
Not even that. Okay, so he brings in the sandwich. I said, okay, put your defense mechanism down. Let's go look into the cause. And from that, just all this stuff opened up. It was a fascinating case because he really had no control in his life. And this was all about having some semblance of control over kids, some semblance of control, some way of manifesting all the repressions.
Yeah,
his
he could have
childhood.
totally gotten out of hand pretty quickly.
Right.
So you were able to help him out.
Yeah, that was a really, really, really successful case. He ended up, Walt, you know how to esteem the doctor, don't you, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I needed that. So yeah, it was very, 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 very successful. He got married and just, very, very much of a community participator. And
because it says here, it's human nature to try and maximize esteem and control.
Okay.
Right? There are two general principles governing the study of self. Masochism runs contrary to both. So we've talked a little bit about that. So here it says the stress makes forgetting who you are an appealing escape. This guy says about being in, and he goes, the essence is escape theory. One of the main reasons that people turn to S&M.
Escapism. Okay. And then another element that I wanted to bring in is the element of reenactment, the Freud element.
You're talking about role play?
Well, okay, let's go back to cause again, and let's think about people who are out of control. Let's think of people who are beaten and abused in childhood, and let's think about how best to mitigate those damages and then to reenact them at a later phase and act out the pain and the pleasure and the control and the lack thereof in their sexuality. Because when there's pure pain and a sense of being out of control, that's not so good.
No, absolutely not.
But if you can bring sexuality into it and you can bring the orgasm into it, which is the release of those feelings, because remember, we talk about suppressing and repressing and expressing, and what better way to express than through our human sexuality,
Yes.
right? And so when we're pent up with all of these aggressive feelings, these sadomasochistic feelings, and we've been let's say been victimized in our childhood, what better way then is there to act out this and express this than to pick somebody that you can act out on, and therefore you can reverse the that feeling. Because remember, we say this a lot on air, childhood is a
hostage situation.
That's right. Childhood is a hostage
Absolutely
situation.
it is.
So in order to mitigate the damages of the hostage situation, which is a feeling of being out of control, then we become masochistic, and therefore we can reenact the in control. And then when we feel very guilty about feeling in control and being the punisher, we can go back to that other role and we become the oppressed.
Well,
We can
that's
switch
yin,
back and
you're back
forth.
yin and the yang.
Right.
Like, for example, Angelina Jolie used to dabble in, primarily I think it was with Billy Bob Thornton, with his S&M stuff.
Okay.
And
She had a lot of pain growing
yes,
up.
she
didn't
did.
she?
Yeah, I think she did. She didn't have a too terrific a relationship with her dad,
Right.
which of course was John Voight. Eva Longolia, she says, being tied up with scarves. I like a man who takes charge. Something's very sexy about being a submissive. Scarlett Johansson loves cars.
Cars.
When she feels kinky, she wants to go do it in a car. Back seat. She loves the back seat. So, I mean, and as I said, Jack Black, he loves feet. He's real big. And Quentin Tarantino loves feet. There was a picture of him online. Like, whoa, that's a little too much for me. Amy Winehouse loves being spanked. It can go hours and hours in different sexual positions. Charlie Sheen, of course, he's just Charlie Sheen. He likes fetishes, spanking, role play, really
All of
kinky
the
stuff.
above,
He's just
right?
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Rihanna, she's into size.
Size?
She's a big believer that size matters.
Size, not
Yes.
like SIGHS.
No, SIZE.
SIZE.
Yeah, size of
Okay.
her male counterpart.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And Christina Aguilera loves to dress up. So there's just a couple.
So, you know.
And you're listening to Dr. Judy, WTF, and we are chatting here about some fetishes mostly. And if you have one, or even if you don't have one.
Or if you have two or three
yeah,
or four.
more the merrier, actually. Absolutely. And if you want to chat about bonding or bondage, give us a call at 323-284-7826. 323-284-7826. And you can get on the couch at Dr. Judy and get a free book.
Really, really looking forward to your calls. Again, I want to let you know how much I love the challenge of taking your symptoms, situation, pains, pleasures, and let's lay it out and see what's behind it. And I'm always I'm so fascinated with human behavior. I don't think I've ever had a boring day being a psychologist. It's just that interesting.
Well, thank you, doctor. That's good.
It's that interesting.
You've done great. You're sitting there in the Attila Hun chair, too.
The Attila the Hun chair?
Yes, you're at the big chair today.
Wow.
Then, on the contrary, some feel that there are 11 common seven common sexual fetishes that aren't that weird, and I guess it's a matter of opinion. We can go through these. Might as well do the yin and the yang. First one is attraction for older women, which is the exact opposite of women being cougars, I guess.
Okay.
Next is voyeurism. Okay. People are aroused by, looking at naked bodies. I mean, if you got a mirror in the ceiling, I mean, is it really that crazy? Sadism, right? Whipping, candle wax, harsh biting. I had one dominatrix I read. She says, I may hurt you, but I'm not going to harm you. I thought that was an interesting delineation.
No puncturing of the skin.
Yeah, no blood. Just basically, you feel pain, but, you're not going to be maimed or harmed from it, which I thought was an interesting line.
No marks.
Navel, the belly button. Belly button. I mean, a lot of women, they get younger, they get their belly buttons pierced, right? It's kind of sexy. This one is, men are very visual, so they like to watch porn. I had to throw that one in.
I forgot all about porn, but you didn't, apparently.
No, I didn't. It's fifth on the list here.
Okay.
And then, of course, next is butts.
Butts.
Guys are usually, they're one or the other, right? They're either ass and legs or breasts. So that one. Next is tattoo and piercings. We talked about that. A younger crowd likes those. Shoe fetishism, of course, we can't leave that out. They claim foot worship might be part of that. And last is hair.
So to each his own. And again, when we take things,
and then last,
objects.
Last is underwear.
Oh, underwear.
Those slinky things.
Makes sense, right?
Yep.
All of these wonderful lingerie shops, Victoria's Secret, and I don't know.
Well, here in Hollywood, we've got Fredericks of Hollywood.
Fredericks of Hollywood.
Yes.
Sorry, not M. Fredericks. That's another Fredericks.
Oh, okay.
Non-kinky clothes. And yes, all of these associations and pairings and classical conditionings and makes us so unique and interesting, and does up the ante on our sexuality and makes sexuality interesting. And so, where do we draw the line? I guess for one, the law, right? Boundaries.
That'll hopefully keep people in line. Yes.
Right.
Unless you're into role playing and then you want to go meet a cop.
People do that.
Yes.
Right.
Well, some women love guys in uniforms.
And there was an article that I pulled up about balloons. There was a man who had a fetish for balloons, and I remember the commentator of the article talking about how he was in a relationship with a woman, and the woman was just a pawn in his little game with balloons. And the commentator made a great comment, which is that she wasn't really even there in terms of being a person. All she was a prop. The balloon was a prop.
And she was just the one holding the balloon.
Whatever she was doing with the balloon. And the point is that he wasn't bonding to her. He was bonding to the object. The and so there's a case where, again, healing human disconnect, creating human disconnect, when the person in that little game of yours is not the main squeeze, pun intended,
yes.
Okay, but the balloon is, we've got a problem, because then the woman is feeling very disconnected from, and as the commentator said, if she left, he wouldn't even know. It would be like losing another balloon.
Well, in other words,
so
it's like,
what?
in other words, in a technical sense, if he had a mannequin holding the balloon, it would be the same.
Correct.
I want to know if it was a balloon with helium, and then what would he do with the helium, right?
Right. And that's when it becomes a problem, right? It becomes a problem when we put things before people, when we connect with objects and we have a person in our realm, in our relationship circle, and we're not connecting with the person, and that person's being injured. But then if you look at that person, you're going to see pathology there too, because you're going to see that person was probably a product of narcissism where they didn't matter anyway. And so they're going to put themselves in a situation where they don't matter either, and that situation could be a situation where that balloon is more important, or the panties are more important, or honey, put the shoes on. I had a recent case where a woman called me up and she told me that her husband was making her wear shoes that were very, very uncomfortable, and she had to squeeze into these shoes.
They're probably too small.
He just got off on her walking around in very, very high shoes, and she didn't really have the option of saying no. I mean, she always had the option of saying no, but he was the breadwinner. He was the big cheese provider.
She probably wanted to please him in some respects.
Did want to please him. They had a child together, and so she was going to walk around and please him and make sure that he was sexually satisfied at her own expense. And so this is where the problem starts, is not that somebody wants to play with shoes or underwear or whip or handcuff or whatever. It's when that synergy between the two people is not being enhanced.
Well, yeah, there's a big
takeaway.
There's a song by Trace Adkins. It basically says, "I hate to see you leave, but I love to watch you go." It's a country western song.
Really?
It's pretty funny. Yeah, I hate to see you leave. And I'm talking about women, of course, from a male's perspective, but we love to watch you go.
Well, one person said to me, "Well, here's a question: why do you pay hookers?"
You pay hookers to leave.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe because they're better at something. But ultimately, there's no complications. There's no drama.
Correct.
They're not going to call you or bang down your door or complications. It's you pay them to leave.
Right, and there's that human disconnect again.
Yes.
That the person is being objectified, and there's no real mind-body-soul connection, and it's just all about that one act. And so, if it's all about that one act, then that doesn't have sustainability. And one of the people that the population that I work with are people who like gentlemen's clubs. And what I find with people who like gentlemen's clubs is they're really very much wearing a heart guard, because it's really easy for them. It's really easy for them to have a lot of objects of women, and very, very hard for them to have a really deep emotional connection
with one, because they're a whole bunch.
Because that's too scary. Okay, that's just too scary. And so sometimes they fall in love, or they want to fall in love, or they want more, or they get older and they don't want to die alone. And so they realize that they have to make that connection in order to have somebody by their side when they stroke out and end up in depends, okay? So that's when they get more interested in forming a true relationship. And so a lot of the work that I do with that population is I help them connect their mind, their body, their genitals, their soul. And so
Would that be their soul, but their foot, or?
Not that, but sometimes that's what they want. And so when we have all of those elements really in synergy, then we've got all cylinders fired. And so then once people understand that connection bumps you up to an even higher vibrational, because you've got all that juice going through you, the mental juice, the physical juice, the psychological, the soulful, okay? That's what fires us up as human beings, like really fires us up. In writing the book that I'm currently working on with my wonderful assistant, Josh Galitsky, who has been very, very helpful in putting this together.
It's a great book. It's basically her book on the mind map.
Yes, it is. It is called Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect.
And it'll be out later this year.
Yes, it will be. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is sexuality as the pathway to source, because ultimately when we have that orgasm, we're very, very vulnerable. And so when we do have the orgasm, it also has a certain beat. It's got a beat of life because it pulsates. and it takes us to what I call the universal source or universal pleasure, and takes us to the highest state possible. And so when we use that energy to so to speak get off on an objectified woman, or get off on a porn flick, or get off on a shoe or whatever, that could be fun sometimes. However, when we have all cylinders firing and all of those elements are at work,
it's got to be more fulfilling.
It's just amazing, because it's the pathway to that source energy. And now we've got panel number 7, which is the light. So put all these elements together. I know, it's that time. Put all the elements together, mind, body, soul, and you've got the light. When you're doing fetishes and sadomasochism, it might be fun for the moment, but not necessarily a lot of light is generated.
Well, they said basically if you get involved in that and experiment with it, that it just makes the whole sexual experience with a couple all that more fulfilling, because you've got some variety and, more connection, because obviously it takes a little bit of vulnerability to do that as well. And it's now time, folks, for Shrink That Tune, and we're going to do one sort of related to the show. It's by Janet Jackson, and it's called Rope Burn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the lyrics, and Dr. Judy is going to transfer it into the mind map, and then we're going to play the song, and that'll be it. So Rope Burn. Let's see. It starts with my lips hurt. And a lot of ooming and ohing and awing. Tie me up, tie me down, make me moan really loud. Take off my clothes, no one has to know. Whispering, I want to feel a soft rope burn. No one has to know, want to feel a soft rope burn.
So there's something very secretive about it. No one has to know.
No one has to know.
Of course, my psychological mind goes to, okay, so what kind of associations are going on here? Why is she tying, pun intended once again, her sexuality with a soft rope burn? And so, where do you think my mind is going on that one, right? I mean, what happened to her at cause?
What caused her to get to have this desire?
Right. So maybe she was burned by a rope. Maybe she was tied down by her primary caregiver, and now she's, doing a what the Freud, acting it out in a rope burn.
When you walked into the room, you knew just what to do. You could have gone from door to door, but you knew just where to go to. Come into my valet room and tell me your fantasies.
Well, I love the line where you just knew what to do, and you knew where to go.
Well,
which is
she's like a guy who likes to take control.
Oh, she loves that. But also, I take it to another level where he knows where the wound is. And so he can play it, and he can play it in the sexual arena, which gives it a whole nother flavor. So now it's not a wound, it's not a pleasure. So you take the wound, and then you get into this other arena and sexualize it, and that takes it out of the wound and into the pleasure area. So he knows what to do.
But it gets better.
It does.
The passion in your voice, I want to hear as you start to tell me while you take the blindfold and tie it gently on me. Do you want to see... Don't want to see, but feel the things you're going to do to me. I want to feel it.
Right, because she wants to feel the edginess of the safe and not so safe. It sounds to me like she's pretty safe with this particular situation.
Well, you've got to be. Absolutely.
Okay, but she wants to little edge. So, she loves the mystery of the blindfolds.
Of course. And then back to the chorus. Tie me up, tie me down, make me moan really loud, take off my clothes. No one has to know. Whispering, I want to feel a soft rope burn. Want to feel a rope burn. 1 in the morning, I feel so free and sensual. Lying here, wearing just my imagination for you. Sensation will do. Can you feel the warmth of the fire? Candlelight embrace your body. I feel hot candle wax dripping down the small of my back.
And it's also controlled, because if we are injured and out of control, that's not so great. But then if you can bring it into the sexual hot arena, everything's controlled, everything's a little bit painful, but mostly pleasureful. that just brings us into control, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it can be freeing, and make you feel alive, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to know what my tongue feels like? You like that? That's basically Rope Burn by Janet Jackson.
Great title. Great words.
And Janet Jackson is a typical Janet Jackson song. I actually had to pull the live one. It had a little more umph to it. And so that's been our show. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Judy WTF, Hole in the Soul with Fetishes. And you can reach us at info@drjudywtf.com. We are also on Facebook, Dr. Judy WTF, and a Twitter. So until next time, thanks for listening. We appreciate it a lot. And we are now going to play our song and close out. Janet Jackson, Rope Burn. God bless.
God bless.
Just where to go to. Come into my velvet room and tell me fantasies. Passion in your voice, I wanna hear as you start to tell me why you gotta take the blindfold, tie gently on me. Wanna see but feel the things you're gonna do to me.
My name is Dr. Marissa, and I am the host of the very popular talk show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. It's a show about